Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to PhotoBiz Live. This is Andy from the PhotoBiz team, and today we're joined by Kalen Henderson for a webinar today about cross-training your business. In addition to getting the opportunity to learn from Kalen in today's webinar, we're also going to have a question and answer session at the end. You can submit your questions at any time using the chat tool. Please remember, if a question pops into your head, go ahead and send it to us. They are retained, and then we'll get to them at the end. If at any point during today's webinar you have trouble hearing the speaker or seeing the slides, use the comment box. Let us know. We'll do what we can for you. And just a reminder, we are recording today's webinar, and it will be available at the PhotoBiz YouTube channel, youtube.com/PhotoBiz. All right, that's about it from my side. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kalen.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm speaking to you from lovely southeast Iowa, where actually today it is above zero, and so I'm pretty excited about that. The sun's out, and we've had some 20-some days already this year below zero, so I am just thankful to see it at least creeping up into the 20s today. Today we're going to discuss how to cross-train your business, and I wanted to welcome you to the gym today. You don't need to put your tennis shoes on or anything, but I did want to thank PhotoBiz for this opportunity. I have to tell you that I have been a PhotoBiz customer for a long, long time. And one of the reasons I am a PhotoBiz customer was because of their business practices when they got started. My friend Julio from PhotoBiz, when I had my photography studio, I picked up the phone one day and he was cold calling. And he said, do you need a website? And at the time I just happened to be thinking, by George, I need a website. And because he called me on the phone and asked me for my business, I became a PhotoBiz customer, and I have stayed a PhotoBiz customer ever since, haven't wavered. If you're not, I highly recommend that you should be, because I do believe in those business practices, and I do believe in everything that they can do for us on the fly and the quality that they give to us. So thanks there, PhotoBiz, for giving me this opportunity and for being a good company. So I'm going to show you here, this is what I look like on a good day. Probably not today, but on a good day, this would be me, just so that you can have this picture in your mind. If you want to go ahead and draw a mustache on it on your screen, that's cool. It's your screen. But I wanted to give you just a quick history of the business here. I started actually in 1987 when I purchased a photography studio that was here in this small farming community, and I moved it into my home where I, at the time, only had 2 children, and I began shooting on film with the equipment next to my washer and dryer in the basement of my home. Quickly, I discovered I not only had a new business, but I was also going to have a 3rd child. And so after that child was born, we moved to another house where I moved the business into the basement of that home and raised these 3 small children while I was doing photography in the basement of my home full-time. As the kids got older and went on to school, we built onto that house. We built a studio onto that house, and I carried on a full-time business there until they were all out of the house and in school full-time, at which time I rented a space on the square here in Mount Pleasant, and then moved the studio yet again to another location in the business district. And then in 2006, that would have been the year that my last child graduated from high school, I decided I wanted to take some time off and maybe see that if there was something else that life was calling me to do. So I sold my studio at that time and got out of the business, but I still, kept one foot in the door because people would call me and say, hey, we still want you to take our family picture, we want you to do this, we want you to do that. I had signed a no-compete agreement, and so I basically got completely out for a little while. After a few years, 3 or 4 years, I thought, the time has come for me to get back in. I couldn't stay out. I really thought it would be a challenge to get back in, and by George it was. I renegotiated my contract with my buyer, and I opened a new studio in my hometown, which is about 12 miles from where we actually live. I rented a space and was in there for 2 years, and after those 2 years, I came back to Mount Pleasant, which is where we are now. So I reopened in 2010. We're entering here year 4 of our location back in Mount Pleasant, which is out on the edge of town. And believe it or not, it's less than half a mile from the studio that I purchased in 1987. So that's where I'm at. I've been in, I've been out, I've been up, I've been down. And so I think that maybe I can talk to you almost intelligently about all the different aspects of business and photography. So I wanted to kind of make the point that there's been no other industry, in my opinion, that has encountered such a huge change in such a short period of time. I mean, you go back to 2003, 2004, in 10 years, the photographic industry has just been turned on its head. And that has caused those of us who've been in the industry to really have to, run and make changes quickly and to grasp not only technology but the way that our customers and the entire population views photography because of the onslaught of all the technology and the digital image and the internet and everything else. It is extremely hard to keep up with all of this on a daily basis, especially for a small business owner. There have been a lot of other industries that you read about that, they talk about the bubble. They talk about the tech bubble. They talk about the, real estate bubble, the housing bubble. Well, I truly believe that we went through the photographic bubble where you got to the 2004, 2005, 2006 where things were good. Things were great. We were all shooting digitally. We cut our expenses, and yet the digital camera was not affordable for the consumer yet. Not everybody had a cell phone, and those cell phones really were just talking devices instead of capturing devices. And so we had the best of both worlds. Well, then all of a sudden the bubble burst, boom, and everything got scattered. And I still almost see the industry as being somewhat scattered now. And in a lot of ways, that's something that triggered me to get back in. When the bubble burst, I thought, I could get back in and start all over. There are days when I think that's a good idea, and there are other days when I wish I had just stayed in bed or maybe decided to, become a florist or something. But I am back in now, and we are, encountering a lot of the issues that have been created by the popping of this bubble. But let's talk about you. Let's talk about your business and what you can do. Here it is. It's February, of course, and most photography studios are waiting and waiting and waiting until the weather gets nice, and people come back and they remember we're here and we need a reason to have them have their picture taken. But during this time, there are a lot of things that you can be doing. And I was actually speaking with Andy before we got started, and I thought, really, rather than doing a webinar, we should all be sitting at our desks making cold calls, calling customers, asking them if we can reorder for them, asking them if we can book them an appointment, doing that type of thing. Let's call them up. Let's email them. Let's see if we can't get some bodies in here and give them a reason to get their photograph taken. But one thing that you need to do before you can do anything, whether you have problems in your industry or your business, or you don't have problems, whether you're new, whether you're experienced, whether you're full-time, whether you're part-time, you've got to identify why you're here today, why you're not in your camera room shooting all day, every day, and making sales. There are those problem areas, and you have to identify those. And I've come up with 3 things that we identified on our end as were problem areas for us. The first was the market was being flooded with others. As digital technology became cheaper and as digital cameras became more available and they could go over to Walmart and get one for $100, the market was being flooded with others. Others that technology made it look so easy, and quite frankly, people believed it was easy. And so everybody out there decided that, well, maybe I can be a photographer too. There was an onslaught of the others. There was a price war raging out there where you have everything. It's going on even now. You have everything from people who charge nothing to you still have the people out there who will charge, $150 to $1,500 for a session fee. And so there really is no medium price for people to say, well, I would jump in at a medium price. Not to mention the fact that from coast to coast, wherever you're listening from, your economy is different from my economy. We just returned last night after visiting our son in California. He had gotten a job here in Iowa and married a girl from California and decided to move there. Well, I'll tell you, they had saved up some money and were going to build a house in Iowa. And that they decided when they moved, they would take that money and put it towards a house in California. Well, I got to tell you, the money that they saved that would build them a house in Iowa probably will barely make the down payment for the same type of house in California. Economies are different. No matter what I tell you today, your economy is different than my economy. Unless you're sitting in town here listening to me, things are different. So you have to figure out what your price, where you fit in that price matrix. Then we had the fact that, and this has come upon us lately, consumers really have little or no knowledge of quality. Where it used to be that they were really worried about whether prints faded or not, now as long as an image looks good enough to put on the web, good enough to put on Facebook, that's the quality margin. And there are those of us who think that quality should go beyond. And so these were problems for us that we ensured that we had to address, that we're taking time to try to educate people in this area. And so I just wanted to make sure that you understood that you have to take a good hard look at your business in order to identify the problems that you have. It's just like if you're going to go to the gym. Because I go to the gym, do I want to be in better shape, or do I just want to have a smaller waistline? Well, it'd be nice to get in shape while I have a smaller waistline, but I know what my problem areas are, and that's the stuff I like to work on. So this, just like when I go to the gym, we have to cross-train for the best results that we have in our studio. We had to learn new things, and we had to get rid of the old things that didn't work anymore. Even though they might have worked last year, it's just not the way things are working anymore, because there are still things that are going on. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, all these different sites. Which one's best? And you could go to 1,000 webinars and listen to experts tell you this is where you should be, this is where you should be. It depends where your people are. It depends if those people are on Facebook, if those people are on Pinterest. Where do you want to be, because where are the people that you want? That's what you need to know. So what we determined was we have these what we call interval products and services. These are things that we can introduce in short little spurts to fill the gaps between our regular portrait, wedding, high school senior services. We have these little interval products and services. You might call them promotions, but I generally think of a promotion as only being something that I offer for just a week or two. These are products and services that we always have, but we just push them at certain times. We put them in the forefront of things so that we can get people to think about them. And this is something that we do especially at this time of year when people aren't thinking about getting in their car and driving over to the studio and having a portrait taken. We want them to be thinking about these other products and services. We've got an on-location service, scanning restoration, these little accordion books, and family albums. I'm going to touch on all these real quickly right here so that you can kind of understand what we do with these. First of all, we have our on-location service. We were discovering that new moms, and especially new moms in our area, where they would have to travel, I don't know, anywhere from 15 to 40 miles to get to us, really didn't want to bring a newborn baby home from the hospital, then pack it up and drive it out to the studio, especially in the type of weather we've been having. That's why we decided we would go to them. We knew that, and when I say we, I'll tell you, it's myself and Kate. Kate is my digital artist, and there's only two of us in the studio. Occasionally I have my youngest daughter who helps out, but it's just Kate and I. And so we knew that we could pack up backgrounds. We knew that we could pack up lights. We knew that we could pack up everything we needed. Go to somebody's home and actually set up a shoot that was just as good as if it was in the studio. And when you understand, the technical part of photography, you can do this. You can take enough to get into someone's home and find the light, find the setting, find everything you need, and have that baby in that home so that you can take that to them. We found this to be real successful, especially with the baby newborns that were being born in the winter. And this is the time of year that we say, hey, we'll come to you. We also found this to be very successful with large families. And if you've got, and when I say large families, we did one over the holidays. There were, I believe, ended up being 75 people in this family. And there would be no way I could fit 75 people in my camera room anyway, so I was glad that they wanted us to come to them. And we agreed on a location where we could fit everybody in, and it worked like a charm. So being able to go on location, and I know a lot of photographers right now don't even have studios. They do everything on location, and so you're out there going, well, that's nothing new. No, it's not, except when we have a studio and we say we're going to bring our studio to you and take our lights to you and do everything in your home, it's new for us. And so an idea like this could be new for you, because in the past, like I said, we have been strictly a studio business, and this is something new for us. Also, in our market area, none of the, quote, professional studios are actually taking lights and everything. Photographers will meet people at the park or here or there, but will rarely go actually into their home. So in my marketing area, this is something new, and this is something that you might think about too if you have a studio, is taking that studio to someone else's home. The second thing that's been really, really successful, and it fills a lot of the cold hours in the winter, is our scanning and restoration. Oops, I wasn't supposed to say that. I was supposed to say this. Anyway, our scanning and restoration services have just helped fill a lot of the financial gaps. It's filled a lot of the cold, lonely hours in the studio when there's nobody else in there. And this we stumbled upon when we first started back up, and we had a woman who brought us over 100 carousel slide trays, and they were from her parents, and she wanted all of those slides scanned and saved, and then copies of the discs made for her siblings. And we discovered that we could scan an awful lot of slides in a short period of time. And where you are in a location, this is something I highly recommend, and especially when you play on the sensitivity of these photos, of these slides, where they don't have to pack them up and risk sending them in the mail. They don't have to risk having them handled by someone else. You can drop them off with us. We will take good care of them, and we will return them to you, and you can actually look at us and hand them to us and tell us what you want done. Then we encourage the multiple copies. We encourage them to put a copy of it in their bank safe so that it's good for decades to come. We give them a discount if they want prints made. And once they start seeing some of these old prints, and once we started seeing them, we started suggesting, hey, look at this old family picture. Maybe you should come in and have another family picture made, and we could meld them together as a, some sort of collage type thing. This has gone over really well for us. And we've got a family album here coming up that I'm going to talk a little bit about that really held hands with this scanning and restoration. Also, of course, we had a couple of tragic incidents where there were home fires, and this is the type of thing that, you hate to play on that, but if there is a fire, you do have a backup copy of everything that has been historical for all these years. Your wedding CD, anything like that, wedding albums that weren't on CD, you've now got a backup of those for generations to come. They can look at these and say, boy, I'm glad somebody saved that, so we can have a print of it. We also have gone through some insurance companies with that, and several different things that have made it possible for us to have this be successful. I'm going to move on to an accordion book. Now, this may not be quite what we would call a service, but this is a little product that most of the labs offer right now that I would suggest you add to your inventory. These little babies have been like gold for us, and we use them as an incentive. When people come in and they say, no, I think I'm only going to order $180 worth of images of my child. And we'll say, well, at $200, we'll give you one of these little accordion books for free. And you can always get them to scooch up to that next level if you dangle something out there in front of them. And I highly recommend that you check with any of the labs out there. And they're offering these little accordion books in one form or another. We find these are the best little brag books that a mom or anybody else will pull out of their purse and say, oh my gosh, look at this, look at these pictures, look at this. And they have been a seller for us, right from the get-go. Seniors, babies, families, everything. And, even some wedding little favors. They've just been a real saver for us. So I would highly recommend that you add that to your repertoire. I'm going to move on to this little family album. I'm sorry I don't have an image of one. We're working on several where we have done the copy restoration work. We've done a current family portrait. We've done the children portrait. And then you put it all together into into a family hardbound book. And this is going to go over really well when you've got, especially if you've got a wedding coming up. If you've booked a wedding and you've said to the bride and groom, hey, dig up some old family pictures of your grandparents, of your parents. Let us scan those. Let us put them into maybe even your guest book, a little family history book that your guests or even just your family could sign. And you could keep that as a keepsake, and pass it along to your children, and so that they can see a genealogy type family album. This is the type of thing that's going to take a little bit of work, but this type of thing will touch an awful lot of customers, and it's something that they will begin to talk about, and it goes even deeper into your business than just that family portrait or that even copy and restoration. I wanted to talk about a couple of new partnerships that we've created, because that's another way, especially in a smaller community like ours, we need to hold hands with a lot of people for a long time, and we need to have these good partnerships so that they're referring people to us, and we in turn are referring people to them, and these successful partnerships benefit one to the other. In our community, we just had the local movie theater was just remodeled, because there was one of those places in a town our size where it might be hard to believe, but it's marginal whether or not a community our size could actually support a movie theater. And so it was purchased by a young couple, and it's one of those where we would like to see that stay successful. And so we went to the movie theater and said we'll buy some packages, and it'll include movie tickets and a drink or a snack. And as high school seniors come in, this would be the type of thing that you would hand to the high school seniors, say, thanks for your business, now go to the movie. And so in return, we would be able to place our information at the theater where people would see it, not necessarily up on the screen on one of those advertisements, but at the ticket counter, maybe provide them with a large print in the back. So it's one of those things where they kind of associate you with the movies, with it's cool, it's an image type thing that you like to have. And so that's one of those things you got to realize. I think that movie theaters are also feeling a little bit of a technology pinch, with Netflix and Redbox and everything else popping up. People who own movie theaters also have to be saying, well, how much longer will people actually take the time to come to a movie theater? So they might be thinking a lot along the same lines that we are. Another partnership would be if you have a local coffee shop and with new moms. Now, what new mom wouldn't just love to go have coffee with her girlfriends and show all her friends that little accordion book and talk about what a great experience she had at your studio. And so if you've got a little coffee shop, I'm sure the coffee shop would have all those new money and gather, even if it was on one day or any day. And if you can feed that and encourage that, and especially these cute little shops that are independently owned, that's the type of thing where they'll go down and they'll sit and they'll enjoy, and it's all about planting a seed in their head. You know, this is what you need to be doing, and here's the seed, here's the coupon. Go and sit and do this type of thing. You have the same thing, and in our area with senior citizens love coupons. And as I get closer to that senior citizen age, I just kind of like coupons too. I'm not exactly sure why, but you know, coupons are coupons. They're money off. And so that's one of those things where I have to love, I absolutely love photographing senior citizens and having them as clients. And I'll tell you why. They still appreciate the photograph. They still remember the photograph. They remember having the photographs on the wall. They remember looking at picture albums. They like photographs. And so there is a huge market out there. If you're not diving into that senior citizen market, you should be. They're also the ones that if you're going to teach a camera training class in digital, these would be the people that you should want to teach. They're the ones that, you know, anywhere out there age 60 and older, they are the ones that are a whole market of people who would like to be able to use a digital camera but don't have the confidence maybe to dive into it on their own. And so get a group of senior citizens together. Teach a little camera seminar for them on digital camera. You know, you don't have to teach them all the secrets, but teach them about their digital cameras, and then see how many of them wouldn't love to have a session booked to have their image made, their image with their dogs, their image with their other pets, with their grandchildren, with their children. Senior citizens also have time also. So that would be one of those things that I just absolutely love it when I have senior citizen clients, not to mention the fact that they are, at least in my area, still extremely social. Going to move on now to your brides, and if you've got, this is kind of unique to us, and I will tell you right now, this is very unique to us. A little over a year ago, my husband and I decided that we would also open a winery. That was actually it was 2 years ago. That was when I decided to move back to Mount Pleasant because we bought some land and we felt that the wine business and the photography business could go hand in hand and go hand in hand very well. So it was just a little bit over 2 years ago. We bought about 8 acres just south of Mount Pleasant here, and we have put in a winery. The building that you're seeing on the right-hand side there, the smaller building, is my studio and also the wine production area that we share with that. The bigger building on the left is the event center that I'm actually sitting in right now. And that event center holds 300 people where you could have a wedding reception, you could have a dinner, you could have any type of thing. But we knew that by building a venue, we could drive people out here to the area, to the photography studio, and the winery and the photography studio could go hand in hand. You have no idea how many new moms come in to get pictures taken and do a wine tasting at the same time. But, you know, they can just go hand in hand. This is one of these situations, and maybe you're going, well, yeah, right, I can't afford to build a winery next to my studio. No, maybe not. But maybe there's a restaurant out there. Maybe there's an event hall. Maybe there is another location that you could go to and say, hey, I would like to be your photographer. When we opened our building here, we had people that came to us and say, hey, I would like to be your caterer. I would like to be your florist. And we experienced this whole, what I would consider cross-training situation that went on where we held hands with a lot of these other businesses. This is just a front view of the event center building. And then this is what it looks like on the inside when it can get all decorated up for a wedding. This was something that really was a great experience in understanding how all these other businesses fit into my business, because all of a sudden I did have all these other vendors. It was different when I used to just shoot weddings and would just meet up with the DJ or meet the florist or somebody like that. Well, now I'm actually working with them, and we're trying to put together packages and understand how we can wrap all these services up into one and hand it to these brides and say, hey, come have your wedding here, come have your event here, and you'll really enjoy your time with us. Just a couple of images. We play a lot on the sunset, and we've got the beautiful sunset view here. We've got the outdoor area that, you don't have to travel to a park or anything to go to. And then if they do book us as their photographer, they do get access to the camera room, and a lot of times we use that camera room as the photo booth, so they don't even need to set up a photo booth of their own to rent one of those. They have access to our studio, which is right here, and that's something that seems to be really going over really well. It's actually a lot of fun. Okay, this is probably the hardest part of this presentation, because this is where we struggle January, February, March, is to shake up your creativity. Well, shaking up your creativity is a lot easier for me to tell you to do here than it is for you to actually do there. It's one of those things where you sit in the studio without any clients for 3 or 4 or 5 days, and it's like, I really feel like I need to be creative, so you're tempted to go on the internet. But I'm going to tell you right now, don't do it. Don't go on the internet. Don't try to, emulate what somebody else is doing. This is the time when you should use this time to make something that's your own for somebody else to steal. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what we should probably be doing. Here's a couple of ideas for you to try. This is how you can work on your creativity right now. Go find an old image that you made, and I'm challenging you to go back 10 years. Go back 10 years, go back 15 years, and look at that image, and the next time you have an opportunity, remake that image. And I'm talking about scanning it and remaking it. I'm talking the next client that comes in the door, use that background, use that pose, use that lighting. Give that old image that you really liked a new life. Another thing that you can do is you can flip your background. Now, I know that we've got backgrounds in the studio that I look at, and I think I can never use that background again. I'm so tired of looking at that background that I'm just going to throw up if I have to look at that background again. But the day came when, believe it or not, I actually did have somebody throw up on my background. And it was a blessing more than a curse, because it required me to flip the background to the other side. And by George, if the other side of that background wasn't just as cool as the front side. And it was a painted canvas, but the back side of it gave it actually a totally different look. So I no longer look at backgrounds only one way unless it's colored paper. And even if it's colored paper, a lot of times we will take the colored paper and crumple it up to give it some dimension, cross-light it after you do that to give it some texture, and it gives you a whole different background. So once you purchase a background, don't always think that that's the only way you can look at it. You can always look at it from a different direction. There are a lot of new ways that you can go about making backgrounds. I also have kind of noticed, believe it or not, that tie-dye is coming back. And so if you haven't ever learned how to tie-dye, this is probably the year to do that, to go out and buy a couple of bed sheets, tie-dye yourself some backgrounds, and have them on hand when the busy season comes back around. You're also going to want to learn to move your light source. If you're lighting from the front and just a flat, dead-on light, pull that light around to the side. Pull it at 90 degrees. Pull it in, push it into the backlight something. Move that light source around and try to figure out, if everything that you're trying to do, if you're really trying to spur on your creativity, you've got to give yourself a huge challenge. And you don't really want to throw yourself into a situation where you're going to disappoint a client by doing it on their time. This is where you can do it on your time. Find yourself somebody that will model for you and start moving around that light source. But the worst thing that you can do is to run these experiments and not write down what you did. I've done that all the time. I've gone in to try to boost my creativity, and I've started experimenting and playing around, and I get to having fun, and I don't write it down, and then I look at the image and I go, oh man, how did I do that? And I can't remember. So you've got to remember, as you're running these experiments, which is number 4, you need to make sure and write things down. Write it down, write it down, write it down so you can remember. Keep a little 3-ring binder with you. Put it on your phone. Whatever you have to do to remember, whether it was good, whether it was bad, where I put this, where I put that, so that you can recreate it. Here's just a few of some images that we've done this year. Had this young man come in, and of course the only thing he brought with him were 4 t-shirts. And I get a little frustrated sometimes at high school seniors because they walk in with the same pair of jeans and 4 t-shirts, and and a parent that says, well, just get whatever you can get. So I questioned this guy, and I said, why these 4 t-shirts? And he said, well, these were my favorite characters. And I thought, well, if he thinks that way, then he can become each of these 4 characters. And it certainly didn't hurt that he had that little Clark Kent look to him. So we have started, trying to dig a little bit deeper into the why people bring in what they want, and why are you being photographed, and what is it you want from this photograph? All those hard questions that sometimes can actually, work to your benefit when you ask them. This young lady, and this seemed to be real popular here this year, was the let me blow glitter at the camera. I almost had to buy a glitter shield for my camera, but she wanted to do the blow glitter thing at me, and this was probably the 4th or 5th time that I had seen the blow glitter, and it was, to me anyway, it was beginning to get old. Therefore, I decided it was time to start maybe putting words to the pictures, and we actually started with this girl and put some words to her pictures, and all of a sudden everybody that came in had a saying that they wanted on their picture. And so that was just one of those things, simple and crazy as it sounds. They wanted sayings on their pictures. So here you go. Here is the sparkle saying that started it, and now the kids are actually saying, here's my saying, and I'll let you know what picture I want it on. And it's okay, we can do that. The other day, we were absolutely tired of snow. It had snowed again, and the 2 high school girls that work for me came in, and we found ourselves just sitting there complaining about how it was snowing again. And I said, well, it's probably time that we stopped complaining about it and we went outside and photographed in it. And so it was actually, when these were shot, the wind chill factor was probably about 15 or 16 below 0. But we were outside photographing in it, and come to find out, they liked these, and we booked 2 or 3 more sessions now. But with the weather the way it is today, the snow is going to melt, so that's probably not so good. All right, we're going to keep going almost to the end here. The last thing I want to emphasize is to find a weakness in your market and try to make it your strength. If things are falling off and you're in a hard place competing with a lot of different people, what you need to do is find the weakness in the market. You're going to know what the strength in the market is. And the way you know the strength in the market is because everybody's doing it. Everybody's photographing sleeping babies, okay? Oh, I'd really love to be able to get into that sleeping baby thing because it looks like so much fun, but everybody's doing it. And so if it's too hard or too expensive to set yourself apart in the sleeping baby market, maybe find the weakness in your market. And the way you do that is you generally go on the social media and find what people aren't doing. What is missing? What are they not doing out there? And the thing that I found in our area that people were not doing was large family portraits. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of large family portraits, and I'm not going to claim that these are awesome. I'm not going to claim that these are award-winning, but the people like them, and you've always got the dad that doesn't want to smile. There's several of them in that picture. But The grandma, who is the red-haired lady on the left, absolutely wanted a large family portrait with all her grandchildren and all her children and their spouses in this picture. That's what she wanted, and that's what we gave her. And like I said, you're not going to be able to get this family to go running in the fields at sunset and get everybody to look fabulous. You know, it would have been nice, but what the grandma wanted was just a basic portrait of a large family. The same thing we had going on here. They wanted a large family portrait. The mom got everybody to come on the same day, and this is one of those things that we're just not seeing. We're just not seeing this. We're seeing cute little small families and a lot of good things like that, but we weren't seeing a lot of large family portraits. So we decided that this was going to be a niche that we were going to fill. We were capable of doing it. It's not easy. It's not easy posing and coordinating and making happy this many people at once, but I'll tell you what, there are quite a bit of orders to be had there and quite a bit of satisfaction when you can get a group this size and make it a nice individual portrait of each person, from a young baby to grandpa to son-in-law who probably doesn't want to be there either. The last thing that I want to bring up, and this might be pushing you just a little bit, but this is just a thought for you to have here, is you might want to consider something really different. If you feel like you're not able to compete, that there's just too much in the marketplace out there, that you don't know excuse me, what direction to go, you might want to consider the sports and underclass market. We have made, we have started moving that direction, and that's one of those things that I've talked to several other photographers about, photographers who've been in the industry for quite a while. Excuse me. And there is still a lot of progress to be made in the sports and underclass market, where you go to a school and photograph all the sports teams, or where you do all the underclass pictures. That's not for the weak of heart. That's something that is a lot of pressure. It takes a little bit of time to learn how to do it. It takes a good lab partner, and there are a lot of things that go along with it. But it is one of those things that can be done. You can start with a small private school. You can start with a small preschool. You can get those. You reach an awful lot of people with something like that. And so your photographing and the options to grow can be endless. But once again, it's not for the weak of heart. And if it's something that you're considering, I'd be glad to answer an email, questions, anything like that about the sports and underclass market, because that is a market where, if you are in photography full-time, that's something that I think can and in the long run provide with a lot of very healthy business right there. So it's the best time of the year right now to take everything you've got, to decide you're going to have a plan, to set your goals, make a budget, make some contacts, and learn something new. I can't emphasize enough that this is February, and January, February, and even part of March, especially here in the Midwest, things just, aren't happening anywhere. It's just that time of the year. In fact, those of you, if you're listening from the South, we send all our people down there. So your business should be doing really well, because it's just a hard time right now to get anybody to move. But once the weather changes, things will start to move, and they'll move quickly, which is why this is the time of year we do set our goals. We do try to know what our budget's going to be. We do get prepared for everything that could happen in the spring, and I just encourage you to do the same. I encourage you to get out there and make some calls, to learn something new, to think about your pricing, to think more importantly about where you are in this crazy market that is going on out there. So Andy, I know you're probably still there, and I'm ready. If anybody has any questions that I could answer, I'd be glad to do my best.
We do, in fact, have a couple lined up. So just as a reminder to everyone who joined us late, because this was one of the questions, we are recording today's webinar, and it will be available on our YouTube page at youtube.com/photobiz with all of the rest of our webinars. Okay, so let us start from the top. This first question is from Jacqueline. She would like to know, do you use special equipment to scan old photos that you then restore?
We do have a relatively high-end scanner. I did make sure and get one that had the capability to scan transparencies, to scan slides, because most of the stuff that we've had come in from the older baby boomer generation have been slides. I know that my parents, who are in their 80s, went through a time when they shot only slides, and my father probably had 100 carousels. So I would highly recommend that you do get a scanner that does have capability of scanning more and we did get a flatbed scanner that we can scan at once, I believe 12 slides in the holder on there. As far as prints go, we have found that the best way to scan prints is to just photograph them. You get a much higher, larger file, especially if you're going to be doing any restoration. Sometimes you get a little bit of distortion on those scanners, and if it's a print that is that's warped or really old, you can always put it between two pieces of glass or put a piece of glass over the top of it before you copy it. But if I was going to make a suggestion, I would say get a good scanner that does have the capability to do transparencies.
Okay, up next we have a question from Elizabeth. This is referring to something you covered a little bit earlier. If the client wants to use previous professionally shot images.
For one of those books, or?
I believe so. If Elizabeth could confirm that, that'd be great.
Regardless of if it's any other professionally shot image, you've got to try to get a copyright release. That's the way I would like to be treated. And so whether it's for, that family album or anything like that, you've got to get a copyright release. Even when we come across images that were maybe shot for a church directory, anything newer than 7 years, you're going to want to try to get a copyright release on. And oftentimes, I will ask the client to try to track that down, to try to track down that copyright release. Suggest where they go. If it's another photographer that's local, then definitely I would ask the client to do it. But we release copyright releases. I know a lot of other studios will sell a copyright release. I like to respect every other professional photographer, and just like I'd like them to respect me. Now, anything older than 7 years, like say we're talking about something that was shot in the 50s, a wedding image that might have been shot in the 50s or the 60s. If you recognize that image and that studio is still in business, out of courtesy, you do need to ask for copyright release. If the studio is not in business any longer, I don't think, and you've made an effort to try to track it down, I think you're probably okay, but I encourage everybody to at least make the effort to track down a copyright release.
Okay, have one here from Dana, and she has a question for the sports and undergrad market. She wants to know if you use a data entry scanner such as Easy Event. Says that's what she's always done for small schools and sports by hand, but getting ready for a larger one. She's always done it by hand, but she's trying to decide if it's worth buying a data scanner for a larger event.
That is a really good question, because I am posing that question to myself right at this time. We have always done it also by hand, and we've come up with a system that we do an awful lot of sports. We've got several school contracts for sports. We've got a couple of underclass school contracts, and we still do everything by hand, but we're very quick at what we do. However, I'm much more confident with the hand method because our accuracy is right up there. And we understand what it takes to identify every kid accurately. I know that the data scanning software is what the labs like us to use, because it seamlessly transmits with the image to your lab, and everything is right there, data driven. And it's possible that we might go to that, but then again, I have the expense of purchasing another laptop that you can dedicate just to that, purchasing the scanning material, learning how to use it, and being confident in the first time that you walk into, let's say, just for example, you're going to do a high school football team in the fall, and you have a school where between high school, JV, and junior high, you might have 200 football players on an extremely hot August day where they're all dressed in their gear, and all of a sudden something goes wrong with your scanning equipment, or you can't get it figured out. There's a glitch. You don't want 200 angry football players staring down into your neck and it looking bad. And I always think about that when it's time to switch over to something, to make the switch to something much more technology-driven. I'm kind of a chicken. I make sure I can justify the cost, and I make sure that absolutely I have tested it and tested it and tested it and gone through every possible what could go wrong situation. Not to mention, Dana, you have to make sure that it justifies the purchase. Is it actually making it easier for you, and is it actually making less mistakes for you, or are you doing it because the labs want you to do it? I agree with you, and we could probably sit down and have coffee over that and maybe decide one way or another. But for now, if I had to make the decision today, I would probably still stay with the manual thing that we're doing just because I'm confident in it.
All right, next up we have a question from Sabrina. She was wondering, how do you charge for the large family portraits?
Those large family portraits, I have one fee for, and it's not per person, it's just one fee. And if I go to you, I charge you that fee plus mileage, and which is, it depends how far I have to drive, but whatever the mileage is. But there is just one fee. And I've always been a believer that I keep that fee rather low because I can't sell what I don't have. And so if my fee to photograph it is way too high, I have absolutely nothing to sell them. But if my fee is reasonable, it covers my time, and then it gives them enough leeway to feel like they got their money's worth, then they will buy prints. And so I've always, I was taught that as a young photographer, you can't sell what you don't have. And therefore, my session fees have always been, some people would call them way too cheap, but I would call them reasonable because that's where they give me the raw materials for my product that I turn around and sell back to them. So yeah, there is a session fee on that. And for those large families, it runs between $50 and $75 depending how long I think it's going to take to do it.
Okay, we will move on to a more equipment-based question from Sarah. She'd like to know what basic lighting equipment you would suggest bringing to someone's home when you're doing an on-location shoot.
Okay, good question. I use white lightning lights. I use the Alien Bees because they're small. I'm a big fan of Alien Bees. And what we'll do is we'll take two very small light stands. We'll take two Alien Bee 600s and a couple of umbrellas and a reflector and just go at it from that because I think that just about anybody has plugins in their wall. Most homes are going to have, they're not going to have 20-foot ceilings. They're going to have 8, 9, 10, 12-foot ceilings. I can always bounce light off the ceiling. I have a reflector in case they have nice window light. Most homes we find have smaller rooms. Two lights most of the time are often one light too many, but I always like to make sure I have a light in backup, and in case I want to double light the area. But those Alien Bees are small, they're light, they're affordable. I love umbrella light. I love to be able to use bare bulb type light. Most people, when you go into their home, they don't want you to be setting up a giant softbox and things like that. That's a little bit too intimidating for them. And so I find that I can use those couple of lights, light stands, and find a lighting situation that I really like. I rarely go anywhere without a reflector because you can generally find any good light from a window or other source and be able to bounce around with a reflector.
Okay, this one is a two-parter from Rich. First part is, how do you deal with clients who want everything on a CD and aren't really interested in prints? And then the second part is the reverse of that. How about the people who just want prints and don't want a CD?
All right, good question. Well, if you go to our website, and I think I put it, there it is, right there. We sell images on CD. And it's a decision I made a long time ago, actually before I ever sold my studio. When we first went digital, I decided I would sell images on CD. If they want to buy everything on the CD, well, they pay a pretty high price for that. But, they can pick and choose. I knew that, at least in my market, I had to be able to sell images on CD because that was what they were asking for. It's kind of like going to Dairy Queen and wanting hot fudge sundae, and they tell me they got chocolate, but they don't have hot fudge. Well, doggone it, I want hot fudge, and so I'll find someplace that will sell me hot fudge. So I knew that I knew we'd have to be able to sell, and I knew we'd have to be able to price them on CD. And so if they want to buy them on CD, I sell it to them on CD. I also figure that when I figure that my cost of product, if my cost of making the image is covered in the session fee and in the image fee, then my cost of selling an image on CD, there's an awful lot of profit there, if you mark it up in the right way. So when we did open up again, because of what I call the tech bubble with photography, the price of an image on CD was very affordable. And what I like is for people to be able to buy multiple images on CD, and they can do with them what they want. So yes, we do sell images on CD. They are priced so I can make a profit on them. When it comes to people that only want prints, okay, I'll sell them prints too. We've got every kind of print, canvas, standout mount. If you want just prints, we will sell you just prints. Because having learned in the film world, I'm kind of from the old school that way, and I would really like them to buy prints. But for those people that just want CDs, we'll sell them that too.
All right, that's all the questions I have in my queue, so we will say going once, going twice. All right, we're going to call that it for today. Thank you very much, Kalen, for your presentation. Thanks everybody who attended and for everybody who asked us questions. Just one final reminder, we do record our webinars, place them on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/PhotoBiz. As a reminder, we do these most Tuesdays of the month. Be sure to check out our blog for updates on future webinars. Next week, we will not be having a webinar. We will be launching our new Biz Talk series. Look forward to releasing that for everybody to see. The next webinar will be with Lou Everling. He's going to be talking about Google Tools. It's actually a follow-up to one of his previous webinars, again, available on the YouTube channel. That's going to be Tuesday, March 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And as a reminder, if you would like to present a webinar or if there's a topic you would like to have either PhotoBiz or maybe one of our VIPs cover, be sure to email us at webinars@photobiz.com. Always looking for volunteers and topics. Thank you again, Kalen. That's going to conclude everything for today. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon.